Good morning, Rabbi Sai. How is everybody doing? Today's shir is being sponsored L'Zeicha Nishmas Chaim Chaikel Ben Ephraim HaKoyin Cantor on his yahrzeit by his son Dr. Marvin Cantor and grandson Mark Cantor. The neshama should have an aliyah. Also, we should all daven l'refuas Rezo Gittel Bas Esther. That's Dr. Epstein's wife, who lives right below me. Avi Epstein's mother-in-law. Rezo Gittel Bas Esther. She needs a serious refuah. She's still on life support. It was a sudden thing. She was just going through treatments, and suddenly she got hit by a bug. Not corona. All right. First of all, we have a quick email from Chaim Bernhack. He says, I just want to let you know that my wife passed the exam. He sponsored the shir last week so that his wife could become a nurse. She passed. Sponsoring works like Kalman in the Five Towns says it's kedai. Without the sponsorship, you know she wouldn't have passed. She passed the exam and now is officially a nurse. Thank you very much. He even thanks me. Wow. Thank you very much, Rebelli, and everyone that learned the daf and her zechus. Yonason Fisgus, dear Rabbi, I love you, share and listen every day on the way to the hospital, at home on the weekend. Even sick with corona, he listens to the daf. I still listen. Is there going to be a siyum in Lakewood? There's going to be 84 locations, and unfortunately, there's not a location in Lakewood. Nor is there a location in Borough Park. Of course there's a location in Lakewood. What's the shayla b'chlal? How can I get info? I don't know. Does he really listen to the shir? Now I'm starting to doubt that he actually listens. All right, there's going to be we're coming out today with the list. The list is out and ready. It's going to be on our WhatsApp group first. There's actually a WhatsApp group in Lakewood, so you have to get into that WhatsApp group to figure out where and when and how. And finally, one last email from Yossi Klein. He wants everybody to know that he's no, what's the word? Whatever the word is. He's not intimidated by those New Yorkers. He's also a New Yorker. He's from Monsey, and there's going to be a Moyer Dikasiyum in Monsey, he says. Have no fear. And listen, there's a lot of competition. Shruly Bornstein is doing a massive siyum in Monsey. When I spoke to him, he was telling me that they're capping it out at 200 people. It costs a little bit of money. We can learn from them. Listen, people could be mishtatef. It's not a big deal. It's not that one person has to sponsor the whole thing. You guys are enjoying it, so everybody should chip in maybe. I'm not telling you what to do, but that's a good idea. Hi, Rav Tzaddik, Rebelli, best shir in the world. He's going to the Ribnitzer Rebbe's kaver, and he wants to have the names. And he loves when I skip words, miss words. And he tells me that I skipped a few words, and I got another email from him that yesterday, Titans I skipped, makes sense, because I don't remember saying those words in the Mishnah yesterday on Amud Aleph, Kuf Mem Gimel Amud Aleph, Svoig, Im yesh loy or beis achiza. Im yesh loy or, I might have skipped the word or, Im yesh loy or. He says he loves it because that keeps him looking inside, looking for those words that I'm skipping. So anyways, Yishkoach Yasi, Yishkoach for all your support for the shir, Yishkoach for taking care of the siyum in Monsey. There will be a siyum in Lakewood as well. And now is the time of the shir where I search for my, what do you call it? That piece. And usually I find it right there and then. No, well, okay, no piece today. Good news, oh, here it is. David Agal, the surfer, wants me to use, he gave me a nice piece. It waxes a surfboard, and I put it on my Gemara. It actually works very nicely. The only problem is that it leaves a nice film of wax on my Gemara, and I don't appreciate that. But he still insists that I should use it. So for now, we're going with this. He says you don't lose that because it's this thick and it's heavy. Fine. We have a beautiful sugi today, Rabbi Isai. We're holding 9 lines from the bottom of Daf Kuf Mem Gimel Amud Beis, and today's Daf Kuf Mem Dalet. Don't get excited that it's only like a 12-line daf. There's some interesting stuff here. We're not going to be doing Taisvis. Don't worry about that either. Yet there's good stuff. Yesterday we learned like this. This machlokes in the Mishnah, top of Kuf Mem Gimel Amud Beis, the first Mishnah in the parak. What happens if you have fruit that is designated for eating and it oozes liquid. Can you use that liquid on Shabbos? Yes or not? Yes or no? Rabbi Yehuda says if it's for food, you could drink from it. And Chacham say if it's for food, you cannot drink from it. And then we had a whole sugi in the Gemara. What are they talking about? What kind of fruit? It's not just all fruit. So the worst category that we had, or the most chomer category, is grapes and olives, because people typically squeeze them, and therefore everybody agrees in that situation that if you set them aside, even for food, and they ooze, it would seem like, at least Shmuel says that that liquid is usr, according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Chachamim. No machlekes there. Comes Shmuel and says, and guess what? On the flip side, all other fruit, if you set it aside for food and they ooze, let's say you take a bunch of apples, you set them aside and all of a sudden liquid comes out of it, apple juice comes out of it, on Shabbos, according to everybody, Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim, you could drink from it. So apple juice, you're allowed to drink. Grape juice, everybody agrees you're not allowed to drink. So where's the machlekes? There's a new category called tutim v'rimaynim. The pomegranate and strawberries or berries. So machlekes, do you go this way or you go this way? Chacham say they're like olives and they're usr, and Rabbi Yehuda says they're like apples and they're mutter. So as we were finishing up yesterday, we were learning this. One of the last words we learned yesterday. It says like this: Lemashkin vilistam. If you designate tutim v'rimaynim, pomegranates, for liquid, you're going to squeeze it, then it's usher to drink according to everybody, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, and he sticks in one word, stam. What's stam? Stam is parev. In other words, I don't know, I'm undecided. I don't know if I want my pomegranate for juice or I want to eat it. Undecided. Undecided goes. So here, we have two categories, food and drink. And here's the stam, parev. I call it parev. Why not? I'm not even sure if this is how you spell parev. Parev could go in the food category, could go in the drink category. I don't know what it is. I'm undecided right now. So the Gemara brings Rabbi Yehuda that says undecided goes in the drink category. It's a terrible category, meaning I can't drink from it. If I have a bunch of strawberries, I didn't decide if I want to squeeze them for strawberry juice or to eat them at my Shabbos meal, undecided, and they ooze liquid, I cannot drink it. Why? Because it's in the category of mashka, of any of liquid. Fine. So now, it's as if I designated it for juice. Says the Gemara. Now, let me just tell you the question Balpeh over here. Because the Gemara goes on a tangent. And we'll go through the tangent, but all the way at the end the Gemara has a question. It seems like, it's a very simple question. It seems like stam is in the category of food, not of drink. Why? Because if you have stam olives, it's like food. It's not metama. We'll get there. So if it's not metama, it's like food, then certainly pomegranates and strawberries. Because the worst category, the most chomer category, are olives and grapes. If you're telling me that there's no intent by olives and grapes, stam, it's not metama. So certainly when it comes to pomegranates and strawberries, they can't be worse than grapes. Oh. Now, I just want to show you what we're going to go through over here. I don't know if you can see this so well. So basically, it's like a 6-step sugya. First step is, Rebbe Akiva says a kal v'chomer, if human milk, which only babies drink, you see, only a baby drinks it, adults don't drink human milk, is considered a beverage, it's considered a mashka. So certainly he says cow milk. This is cow milk. Should be a beverage. Says the Gemara, we're just doing Amid Aleph here, Balpeh. and then we'll fly through it. Says the Gemara, wait a minute. You see this kid over here? If he gets a boo-boo and he has blood is one of the 7 mashka. Now, real quickly, we gotta discuss this for a second. What's a mashka? Well, in order to make any food tameh, you have to be machshurit. It has to go through a process of getting wet by one of the 7 liquids. 7 liquids. You have water, wine, oil, dew, blood. Blood is one of them. Honey. Blood is a mashka. It's not a beverage. Nobody drinks it, but it's considered a liquid, one of the 7 liquids. Says the Gemara, very interesting. You know why a baby's milk, human milk, is considered a beverage? Because of this guy right over here. Because if he gets a boo-boo and he bleeds, his blood could be machshir food. And guess what? The Gemara always understands that human milk is a derivative of blood. So if blood is mitama, milk is mitama. But that has nothing to do with cow's milk, says the Gemara. Cow's milk is different. Because a cow's blood is not mitama, so the milk is not mitama. And then Rabbi Kiva says, no, look, it has nothing to do with intent over here, it has nothing to do with anything. I'll prove to you that milk is more chamer than blood, because if I take milk, if a doctor takes milk out of an animal because it needs to relieve the animal from its milk, so it's refuah, in other words, it wants it, so this milk is mitama, is machshir, but blood that comes out of an animal, if a doctor removes blood or bloodletting, that blood is not mitama. And finally, Chacham come up and they say, this is step 6. If I take grapes and I put it in a basket, so depends what my rotzen is. Depends. Do I want the grapes? Do I want whatever oozes out of it, or do I not want it? And if I don't want it, then it's not mitama. But the lashon of the Gemara is loyla rotzen. Loyla rotzen. I didn't have my mind on it. And the Gemara understands that what we're talking about here, stam, the word stam, parav, is very similar to loyla rotzen. Loyla rotzen, he didn't think about it. He doesn't know if it's going to ooze out or not. It's not mitama. So over here also, stam should not be mitama. And the Gemara says, no, over there, loyla rotzen doesn't mean stam. Loyla rotzen means loyla rotzen, he doesn't want it. He doesn't want anything to ooze out. He even says specifically with his mouth, I don't want it to ooze out, let's say. And over here it's stam, over here it's parav. So now let's see this whole sugya inside. A very simple sugya. Savar, ask the Gemara, V'savar Rabbi Yehuda stam asur? Is it possible that Rabbi Yehuda says that when it comes to tutim v'rimayim, it comes to strawberries and pomegranate, and he doesn't mention what he wants to do with it. He doesn't say, I'm going to squeeze it or I'm going to eat it. He just leaves it in the refrigerator, he'll decide later, and liquids come out of these pomegranates and strawberries. And you're going to tell me that it's also to drink that on Shabbos. It's in the category of mashka. Stam is going to be over here, mashka. It's as if I said specifically, I want to squeeze these pomegranates. Vasnan. So now we go on a whole tangent. It's a whole amud, but it's only 10 lines. Vasnan. Chaleva isha mitamel l'rotzen v'shalei l'rotzen. Human milk is machshir other food to be mekabel tuma, whether she intends for the milk to come out, whether the baby intended to drink, or whether it came out by itself, or whether the baby was not really wanting to drink, it just came out. You don't need intent when it comes to human milk. And as we saw, because it has to do with blood. Blood, milk are equal. You don't need the intent. You don't need it to be a mashka. You don't need it to be a beverage, because blood is not a beverage. Blood is not something you drink. So therefore, milk also is not something, drink, not drink. Automatically, it's machshir. Chalei behema, but there's a big difference between human milk and cow milk, animal milk. Chalei behema ein mitama ela l'ratzon. The only way I could spill milk on my apples and make them mekabel tuma is if I decided I want to use this milk. I want to milk a cow. But if it just dripped out of the cow and then it goes on my apple, the apple is not mekabel tuma. Wait a minute, I don't agree with this whole idea of Ratzain, not Ratzain. Human milk, who drinks human milk? Only infants. Adults never drink human milk. Nevertheless, they have the ability to be machshir food. So what do you see? They are considered a beverage, even though it's a very weak beverage. This is a beverage that it's exclusive to infants. It's a very weak beverage. Adults don't even drink it. It's not a beverage for adults. Nevertheless, it has a halacha of a beverage, and it's metama my fruit. So cow milk that everyone drinks, it's a universal drink, so it's a serious beverage. So certainly it should have the ability to make my fruit mukhshel kabel tuma. Where are we on this list? So we spoke about a baby, we spoke about cow's milk. Now we're talking about this guy right over here. Says the Gemara, I'm going to tell you why human milk is different. The reason why you don't need any intent, and you don't have to think about whether it's a beverage or not a beverage when it comes to human milk, is because shedam magefasa tameh. Blood that comes out of a wound is tameh. That's one of the 7 liquids. Believe it or not. You have mayim, yayin, dam. Now, nobody wants the blood. Nobody's drawing blood on purpose. It's not something you need intent. Blood comes out, it's automatically tameh. Mitama, it's mitama fruit. If blood drips, if I get a cut while I'm picking an apple and my blood drips on the apple, I don't have to say, I wanted to draw the blood and that's why it's mitama the apple. It fell on the apple and the apple becomes tameh. Yitama, the Gemara asks. So again, I don't need ratzon when it comes to blood. So therefore, I don't need ratzon when it comes to human milk. Why? Once again, human milk is a derivative of blood. Milk is blood. Should have the same halacha as blood. Yitama chalei b'behema shaloi l'ratzon. Why would I even have a havamina that cow milk? You shouldn't need intent. You need intent to say, I want this milk. Why? Because at the end of the day, if a cow bleeds, then that blood doesn't cause a hechsher tumah. And therefore, its milk doesn't cause hechsher tumah. So, no comparison between human milk and animal milk. Because their bloods are different. Human blood is machsher and cow blood is not machsher. Omar Lahan, says Rebbe Kiva, he doesn't give up. Machmarani b'cholav mi b'dam. No, you see that milk is more chomer than blood. Sha'choylev l'refuah. Here, these 2 pictures right over. We're holding at step 4 and 5. If I milk an animal for refuah, what does it mean? I need to relieve the animal from pain. And 5, if I bloodlet an animal, guess which one has more tumah or is machshel kabel tumah? The milk. In an animal, its milk is more powerful. Shachoy live l'refuah tameh, v'hamek is l'refuah tar. At the end of the day, if I draw blood because I want to heal the animal, it's not mitama, it's not machshel kabel tumah, but the milk is. Why, if I draw milk l'refuah from a cow, it has the ability to machshir peres? Because I want the milk. I say I want the milk. Why? Because of refuah. Why? Because I want to drink it. What's the difference? Why? I draw the milk. I want the milk. But blood not. In the final step. You see from a basket full of grapes that it's all about intent. It's all about what's in the guy's mind. If I want it, then it becomes tamei. And if I don't want them to ooze, the tar. So the Gemara continues. So what we're talking about a word shaloi l'ratzon. He didn't have intent. Loi l'ratzon. He doesn't want the olives and the grapes to ooze, so therefore they're not machshel kabel tumah. You hear what's going on here? You have grapes that are oozing liquid, they're oozing grape juice, and that grape juice cannot make my fruit mukhshel kabel tuma. Why? Lo l'ratzon. I didn't have the intent. So the Gemara just finishes up the question now. My love, we finally got to step 6, and now here comes the question. My love, l'ratzon denichale, shaloi l'ratzon b'stama. Simple reading of it. Lo l'ratzon means I don't want it. Or not I don't want it. Better than I don't want it. Stam, parav. L'ratzon, let's talk about l'ratzon. L'ratzon means I want the liquid to come out. I'm in the wine business. I need all the liquid of the grape to come out. So it's l'ratzon. And what's lo l'ratzon? Lo l'ratzon just means I'm not in the wine business. Not that I don't want it. I'm not against it. I never thought about it. Like us, if we have grapes in our refrigerator, do we think about the oozing of the liquid that comes out? Do we care? Nobody thinks about it. And if nobody thinks about it, it's a bunch of parav. And what does the Gemara say about parav? That it doesn't have the ability to be matama my food, to be machshir l'kabel tuma. So grapes, which is the highest level, the closest thing to being automatic schita. In fact, Shmuel says there's no machlokes when it comes to grapes and olives. If it oozes, everybody holds you're not allowed to use it on Shabbos. So what does lo l'ratzon mean? I didn't have it. It was parav. Parav, shelo l'ratzon b'stama. So the Gemara finishes up, which is the highest category. The whole world squeezes olives and grapes. There's no shaila. In every city, every place in the world, that's what they do. And if you didn't think about it, it was just parav, that juice, whatever you got out of it, cannot accomplish anything. It cannot make my fruit tamei. It can't be machshir my fruit l'kabel tuma. Tutim v'rimaynim delabnei schitaninu. So certainly the category of pomegranates and strawberries that typically most people, what's lav b'nei schitaninu? Most people in those days didn't squeeze them. Like Kolchkin, that if it's stam, if it's parav, it should be in this category, in oichel. It shouldn't be in the mashka category where I can't drink it. It should be in the oichel category where I could drink it. So why are you telling me if it's stam, it goes in this category? Over here you see that if it's stam, it goes in the, it's not tummy category. So if it's not tummy category, it means it's food. Oichel. Says the Gemara Loi, in this particular case, when it comes to the olives and the grapes, and when I say Loi l'ratzon doesn't translate into stam, into parav. Loi l'ratzon means it's against my will. Literally, Loi l'ratzon, it's against my will. Oh, if a person says, he specifically says, I don't want it to ooze, and then it oozes, then obviously I don't want that water. It's not something I want. And if I don't want it, it's against my will. It can't be machshir l'kabel tuma. It can't make other fruit tamei. But in our case, we're not talking about he said specifically, I don't want it. He didn't say anything. He was stam. Lo l'ratzon b'stama. The word ratzon, the opposite. Now we're going to take the stam, parav, and make that ratzon. If a person doesn't say his intent, so when it comes to olives and grapes, automatically we assume he wants it. The exact opposite of what we're saying. By us, we were saying stam means that he doesn't want it. It's parav. No, when it comes to grapes and olives, stam, l'ratzon, when it means when the Gemara says l'ratzon he wants it, it means stam. He didn't say straight out he wants it, but it means parav. Shaloi l'ratzon. What does shaloi l'ratzon mean? The Gala Adaita that he showed us, the Omar Loi Nichalei. He says, I don't want this. Not parav, but he actually says the exact opposite of parav. Or he explains his parav. He says, I don't want it, and that's why when it comes to this final case of grapes in a basket, and he says specifically, I don't want the liquids, so those liquids don't work to be machshir his fruit. You can't force a guy to make liquids. I don't want it. The only time you can force is by a cow that the milk is like blood, the milk is like blood, and blood you don't need ratzon. When it comes to other liquids, juices, you need ratzon. This case is different. Because look, where did he put his grapes? In a basket. And the basket has many holes in it. So he understands immediately that if he puts his grapes here and they're going to ooze liquid and grape juice is going to come out, what's going to happen to it? Garbage. He put it there with the intent that if he loses liquids, he loses them forever. He'll never be able to recapture it. So immediately he's mafkir it. Great. Masha'en came by us. When it comes to strawberries and pomegranates, he doesn't put it in a perforated basket. He puts it in a nice plastic jar, and he's trying to catch all the liquids. Oh, you want to catch all the liquids? Then you have intent, and now it becomes like a mashkim. That's why it's not like oichel, it's like mashka. But when you don't try to catch it, it's in a basket, then you're showing that you don't want the liquids, and if you don't want the liquids, then they're not mekabel tumah. Says the Gemara, Ashkechon Rabbi Yehuda the Moedel Rabbanan Bezeis and Va'anovim. Now, as we started off, and we had this yesterday, Shmuel comes along and says a great chiddush, and he says everybody's in agreement when it comes to the two major categories. When it comes to olives and grapes, everybody's in agreement that if they ooze by themselves without intent, you cannot drink it on Shabbos. And everybody's in agreement that when it comes to regular fruit, all the fruit in the world, everybody's in agreement that you could drink it if they ooze on Shabbos. So where's the argument? In two fruit only, in pomegranates and strawberries. So the Gemara says, okay, we find that Rabbi Yehuda agrees to Chachamim when it comes to olives and grapes. But how do you know the other side, the flip side of that? That when it comes to all fruit in the world, they're not talking about pomegranates and strawberries, and not grapes and olives, but all fruit, apples and oranges. How do you know that over there Chachamim agreed to Rabbi Yehuda that if they ooze apple juice on Shabbos, you could drink it? Says the Gemara the Sanya, and it's not mefurish, it's more of a diuk, the Sanya. Soichatim, we're turning today's daf, sponsored by Shia Greenfield from Green Star Electrical. And by the way, I thought about this. I'm getting quicker at it, huh? Who's the first sponsor? Official from Official Catering. Who's the second sponsor? Shia Greenfield from Green Star Electrical. Those are the two jobs that I had before real estate. I was an electrician for like almost 2 years, and I was also a caterer for a bunch of years, for 5-6 years. Anyways, okay, just maybe they have a better connection with me because of that. I don't know. Or maybe it was just hashgacha pratis. Says the Gemara, but I certainly have a connection with them. I understand them. Although Shia probably never bent pipe in his life because he's in New York, so you don't have to bend over there. They don't have the unions and all that stuff. Says the Gemara. Let's turn back. Soichatim, very important word here. Soichatim bivgoyim uvefrishim uzradim. What are these things? Oh, don't worry, I have a chart for you. If you look at Rashi, bivgoyim, top Rashi, prunes. Rashi says the prunes. Otherwise known in English as plums. Prunes, plums, that's how you make a prune. So this is bgoyim, this is prishin, a quince, and this is uzradin, is a sorb apple. This looks like some sort of berry. Yeah? Okay, these three guys, you could literally take them on Shabbos and squeeze a plum as much as you want on Shabbos, and you're not over on schita. Why? Because nobody does it. Nobody separates the juice from the fruit. You're only chayiv on schita, on dash, on mefarik, on boyer, on all these things, is when you do it. But when the guy is crazy and he starts smushing something, that's his problem. He's crazy. A guy starts taking chicken and goes like this, starts squeezing chicken. We're going to see. If it's not done, it's not done. You can't be over. You can't invent an isser. Nobody squeezes a prune, a plum, and a quince. Pomegranates are different. You shouldn't be squeezing a pomegranate. Says the Gemara, and the Gemara focuses on this line right here. V'shel beis Menashe bar Menachem hayu soichatim b'rimonim. You should know that Menashe used to squeeze pomegranates. Who's Menashe? Let's pretend Menashe is a big fat Amaretz. I don't know who he is. It seems like he's not a big Talmid Chacham. He's a pomegranate squeezer. That's what he is. Okay. So what do you see from him? You see that people squeeze pomegranates. There's a guy, Menashe bar Menachem, he squeezed pomegranates. I hope I'm right, that he's not like some, it seems like from the Gemara later on. He wasn't the, says the Gemara, okay, but you still didn't prove anything that Rabbanan hold anything. It doesn't say Rabbanan here. Dilma Rabbi Yehudahi. Maybe this whole thing is Rabbi Yehuda, that when it comes to other fruit, Soichatim, you're allowed to squeeze it on Shabbos. You're allowed to squeeze a plum. You're allowed to squeeze a quince. So Melech Chachamim also hold that. Who said? Dilma Rabbi Yehuda. Maybe this whole thing goes according to Rabbi Yehuda. Says the Gemara, I'll tell you why. Rabbi Yehuda only argues on Chachamim when fruit, the whole machlokes we had yesterday, beginning today, fruit that oozes by itself. It oozes. It came out. The fluids come out by themselves. Where does Rabbi Yehuda mention you can go take a fruit and start squeezing it on Shabbos? That's a whole different level. In other words, there's no machlokes on what fruit you could squeeze and not squeeze, and what fruit. The whole machlokes between Chacham and Rabbi Yehuda is, are we going to be geyser on this kind of fruit after somebody squeezes it? But there's no machlokes what fruit. Says the Gemara, did Rabbi Yehuda never said you could go squeeze something? So why does it say over here you could squeeze it? Since it's not a fruit that anybody in the world ever squeezes for juice, you're allowed to, on Shabbos l'chatchila, go and squeeze it. You're not over on anything. It's not in the category of Isser. So therefore, once you're explaining Rabbi Yehuda, you can explain anybody. You can explain Rabbi Yehuda that what? That there's no schita here and you could go l'chatchila and squeeze it. So therefore I could say it's Rabbanan. So again, it's not a mefurish Rabbanan that agreed to Rabbi Yehuda. It makes a lot of sense logically. The Rabbanan will agree to this. In other words, the whole machlokes was if you're gonna allow somebody to drink this liquid, is the guy gonna come later on to squeeze it on Shabbos? Rabbanan say you have to be geyser. Rabbi Yehuda say you're not geyser. There's never machlokes on what fruit we're talking about, or how you squeeze and do you squeeze. That everybody agrees that these garden prishim uzradim, these three types of fruit and other charcoal pears, people don't squeeze, and therefore if you don't squeeze, you could squeeze it l'chatchil on Shabbos. Chacham should agree to that idea as well. Says the Gemara, Shal beis Menashe bar Menachem hayisochnu b'rimonim. So we brought Menashe, and we said Menashe used to squeeze pomegranate. And what's the big raya from there? Oh, you see pomegranates in its own category. They squeeze. People squeeze. The halacha is like Menashe. Rava, what do you mean halacha is like Menashe? What just happened there? Rabbi, how does it happen? It's like a trick. You guys are playing tricks on me. Don't know. Okay. Somehow he disappeared while we were talking, and David is laughing his head off in Malibu right now. Okay. Lower you down. How's that possible? Stop. It's like shtick. Okay. Ask the Gemara. You tell me halacha is like, imagine, like Gerald Foster. The halacha is like Gerald Foster because Gerald Foster makes pomegranate juice. So the halacha is like an amar, it's like an amaritz. He's not a Tana. What do you bring a raya from Menashe? Maybe the pshat is not the halacha is like Menashe, but like the Tana that brings a raya from Menashe. Okay, so I'll give it to you. The Tana, the big Talmid Chacham said, look, there's a guy called Menashe, and he has a squeezing thing, and he squeezes pomegranate all day long, and therefore pomegranates are different than all other fruit. But I have another problem. Okay, so fine, I'll give it to you. You are medayik so much in your lashon. You didn't mean the halacha is like Menashe. The halacha is like the Tana that brings a raya from Menashe. But still, that's a problem. Menashe and Menachem have a ruba dalma because one person squeezes pomegranate. That's why you change the whole category of pomegranate. Says the Gemara in the Snana Makayim Koitzim Bekerem. Yes, one person could change the whole world. Why? Hamakayim Koitzim Bekerem. You're talking about Klei Kerem. If you plant something with grapes in the vineyard, they both become aser. So what if I take koitzim? I take thorns. I simply plant thorns. I'm crazy. I'm a meshugana. I plant thorns with grapes. That one guy, he decides and it becomes kaddish and everything is aser. Why? It's not a big problem. Only things that other people do so. So if people plant tomatoes, whatever you want to call them, then that tomato makes the geffen aser. That's it. My time at the Rebbe Eliezer, I see some chat about mulberries. What are they tying? That the Prishan is that Uzrodin is mulberries?
No, that's tooth is mulberries.
That who? Oh yeah, I keep on telling you that the tut is berries, but Yoni put strawberries. I just added color to the strawberries. Actually, I took another picture, and I like it. I don't relate to mulberry. So since Yoni put in strawberry, I'm flowing with Yoni. Yes, I understand. That's why I said it a few times yesterday. The literal translation is a berry, but just for lahamchish, for demonstration purposes only, you want to get into the nitty gritty. It's mulberry. They probably didn't have strawberries in those days. Fine. Or maybe they did, I don't know. But yeah, when the Gemara says tut, it doesn't mean like today in Israel, tut sadeh, it means berries in general. Great.
For illustrative purposes.
Thank you. For illustrative purposes, and literally, Yoni the illustrator did it with, let's see if I can find his Mishnayos here somewhere. Oh, 1 second. Just to show you what his looks like versus mine. What is going on there? I'll find it after Shir. Here we go. See this? You're able to see? So there's strawberries, but they're black. I don't know if you're able to see. Anyway, Zog the Gemara. So the Gemara asks a question. One person does it, that makes it for the whole world. Says the Gemara, yeah, you see when it comes to Klei Kerem, if a person has thorns in his vineyard, according to Rebbe Eliezer, that ruins the vineyard. My time the Rebbe Eliezer, and Rebbe Chanina explains. Shekain, there are Arabs somewhere in some place, some far-fetched place that have a bunch of camels. They need thorns for the camels, and therefore thorns are considered a fruit, a vegetable. Me the area, the Ravi Asra. What's the connection? How's Menashe? How could you compare Mr. Menashe to Arabia? Arabia is a whole city, state, country. It's a place. You have one Meshugana called Menashe that squeezes pomegranates. That's going to change everything. Elo hainu taima k'de Rav Chizda. Says the Gemara, the pshat is like Rav Chizda, Rav Chizda, Chirodin shesachton unesana b'mikvah. Now, what Rashi points out, when it comes to a mikvah, in order for me to passel my mikvah, first of all, I need rainwater. I can make it possible by introducing 3 lug of sink water, of mayim shu'uvim, into my mikvah. But when it comes to coloration, explains Rashi, it's a mashu. If I change the color of the water, even with 1 drop of dye, or whatever it is, mikvah is possible. So if I take beets are beet juice, right? Red, terrible stuff. But today people drink beet juice. If you said that in the time of the Gemara, they would laugh. If I squeeze a beet, because I'm nuts, and I put it inside the mikvah, that makes the mikvah possible. Who in the right mind What's the name of that company that sells it? I forgot already. That one. Kids, the beet guys, the guys that make matzah also, whatever. One of these funny Jewish companies, gefilte fish in a can they sell, and beet juice. And the old people, Manischewitz, there you go, Manischewitz, beet juice. Guy made millions of dollars on a crazy idea. The Gemara says nobody who would do something like that. Nobody squeezes it for the juice. Nevertheless, even though nobody squeezes it for the juice, you drink it. Okay, Eli drinks it like crazy. Fine. There's a restaurant in Chicago. I don't have time for this. I went in there. I said, stop serving beets. The what's the name? The Israeli restaurant. I said, you could put pickles on the table, but stop putting taboon. So he says, everybody loves beets. I ran around the whole restaurant in front like a meshuggah. I went to every single. Do you like beets? No. You like beets? No. You like beets? No. So the guy said, okay, I see you're right. He stopped putting beets on the menu. I come back a month later. There's beets on the table. I go, what's going on here? He says, you know how many complaints I got about not having beets? So I tasted them. That was the first time I ever tasted a beet, and I actually liked them. I thought, it's not bad. So
you have to eat them with the pickle. It's a zach together.
No, they taste like pickles. They do have a good flavor. It was my mistake. It was my bad. Anyway, so why would the mikveh become possible if you squeeze a beet that nobody squeezes? Since I had intent that I want it, it becomes liquid, even though nobody in their right mind does it. Nobody squeezes it. So too, as long as you have intent, when it comes to these, whatever it is, and we'll discuss in a second, you turn it into mashka. So Rashi explains beautifully. This is classic, beautiful Gemara. If you just read it simply, okay, intent, not intent. So Rashi goes through a beautiful cheshbon here. I don't think we have time to go inside, but Rashi says like this. If that's the case, so why the first line on this Gemara, right here, and as you recall, these three guys, we said you're allowed to squeeze it on Shabbos. Well, I just said if you have intent, then you make it into mashka. So I had intent. I squeezed my plum. Explains Rashi, unbelievable. That you must say, and this changes the whole sugya. It's a 5-step cheshbon in Rashi. 5 steps. Why are plums different? Because plums, the only reason I'm squeezing the plum is to make it sweet, says Rashi. So making sweet is okay on Shabbos. So then what about pomegranate? I'm also squeezing the pomegranate to make it sweet. That's why the Gemara says Menashe. Menashe squeezed it for juice. Here's a raya, there's one guy called Menashe that squeezes it for juice. That's why pomegranates are very different than plums. That's why there's a gzeira. Since he does it, I have to be careful that even though I'm squeezing it to make it sweet, because it's Mr. Menashe, even though he's one single guy in the world, he ruined it. He made a gzeira for me. Unbelievable. So again, the Gemara says it makes a difference what I think and what I don't think. So if I think I want it for juice, I just made it into a mashka. So asks Rashi, explains Rashi, what about plums? Must be that plums I don't want it for juice. Plums I want to squeeze it to make it sweet. But it says it in the same exact line as pomegranates. Plums and pomegranates are the same exact line. One is usr, one is mutter. But you're squeezing it for the same reason. In other words, pomegranates, I squeeze it to make it sweet. So why are pomegranates usr? That's why the Gemara introduces us to Mr. Menashe, the squeezer, because he squeezes it for liquids to drink, not to make it sweet. And therefore I make a gzeira and I say all pomegranates in the world and all mulberries, we'll call them mulberries now, in the world are usr to drink the liquids if you squeeze them, even though you're squeezing them to make them sweet, because of Mr. Menashe. He ruined it for everybody. How do you see that one guy can ruin it for everybody? That you see from a mikvah. If one guy takes a beet and squeezes it and puts in the mikvah, he just made the mikvah usr. Rav Papa doesn't like this whole thing. No, you can't. With your mind, you decide it's liquid, not liquid. I'll explain to you why beets ruin a mikvah. That is because I cannot start out a mikvah with beet juice. I can't make a mikvah out of beet juice. So therefore, I cannot use a mikvah. So why am I bringing Menashe according to Rav Papa? I'm bringing Menashe because Menashe is not the only guy in the world that does pomegranate juice. Menashe is one guy as an example of many people that squeeze pomegranates, and therefore pomegranates are also the squeeze on Shabbos. What do we do? It's a whole sugi here. Okay. We'll stop right here, Rabbi Isai, because unless you guys want to go weiter, anything? No, go a little weiter. 3 minutes. We'll see what we can do in 3 minutes. Not awesome. If in the mikvah, wine, vinegar, moichal. Moichal is olive water. Now, says Rashi, there are 3 stages in olive water. When you put all the olives together, some water comes out, very clear. Later on, when they're there for a while, they heat each other up, more liquid comes out. After that, you take the olives, you put them in a net, and you squeeze them, more liquid comes out of them. Says the Gemara that moichal and wine and vinegar, they ruin a mikvah. Man tana the moichal mashkehu. Who's this Tana that says that? Omar Abai Rabbi Yaakovi. That goes according to Rabbi Yaakov. The time Rabbi Yaakov Omer, moichal hareu kemashke. Though olive water is like a beverage, and therefore it passes a mikvah. Umatam amru moichal hayotze b'tchila tar. How come we said that the step 1, when it initially comes out, it's not mekabel tuma? I don't want that liquid. I'm against it coming out. If it's against, it's not mekabel tuma. Reb Shimon argues. So anyways, our Tan is Rabbi Yaakov that says it's a mashka. Mashka, a beverage, passes a mikvah. Reb Shimon says moichal is not a mashka. So then why is it that liquid that comes out of olives is tamei? That's step 3. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be oil in that water. So what's the nafkamina between Reb Shimon and Reb Yaakov? They seemingly are saying the same thing. Step number 2. What happens after step number 2? According to Reb Yaakov, the liquid is tamei. And according to Reb Shimon, you need oil in it, and that doesn't have oil in it. Memela, it is tahar. Rava Amar, I'll just do one more line. Mishum da have a davar shein oisen in meno mikvah upoisel is a mikvah b'shinu mar. Similar to Reb Papa. Since you don't make a mikvah out of olive water, therefore, if it changes the coloration of the mikvah, it passes the mikvah. Have a wonderful day. Noam, please lead us with some tehillim. Have in mind. Reidel Gittel Bas Esther. Shem Alois Mama Kumasi Chadino. Kisana shel dvor yacholti. Shila dinim shomim laboiker shomim laboiker. Yechai Yisrael adinu gimen yechai zeva b'yim fedo. Zuyidei Yisrael mikol avin Yisrael. V'chen Yisrael zom shivim shto bagal zman korim. Shkoyach Rabbi Isai.